Good morning, Greater Cincinnati, Northern Kentucky, the United States, and the world. My name is Eric Ellis. I'm the president and CEO of Integrity Development Corporation, and I'm joined by my good friend and brother,
Tommy Lewis, president and CEO of Make It Plain Consulting. Good morning, Eric.
Good morning, Tommy. How you doing, man?
Man, doing real well this morning. I'm glad it's the weekend, man. What a week we had. But it's the weekend. I'm excited to talk to our guest. And it's actually her return back to the show, Eric. Her return back to the show. And even more so, some of the things that she does will actually speak to some previous guests, around relationships and managing relationships. So I'm really excited this whole week to have Toya Montgomery join us today.
Absolutely. Toya, how are you this morning?
I'm doing well. How are you guys? It's so snowy outside. We're just trying to keep it all together, right?
Right. How do you feel about the snow, Tommy? I'm a guy that I can do it or I can't do it, but it is kind of beautiful when it comes. But Cincinnati is just don't know how to act in the snow.
So, it's been some years since we had a snow like this. Historically, Cincinnati, definitely in the 70s.
Oh yeah,
I remember the 77 blizzard because my father and I walked across the Ohio River. And so I remember when we used to get snow in October through February. So now the snow doesn't really bother me. It's really other people not knowing how to drive in the snow or not shoveling their sidewalks and things like that. That is a risk. And I say that about sidewalks because if you're in Cincinnati and you're not familiar, the sidewalks are owned by the county and the city. So if anyone walks and falls on your sidewalk, as a property owner, you're liable.
Oh, that's right. That's exactly right.
So people in our neighborhood, we have sidewalks. I know in your neighborhood, Eric, you do not, but we always shovel our sidewalks and our neighbors do not. So people can just jump on, slip and fall.
What's wrong with him, Tommy? What's wrong with him, man?
What's wrong with him, man? I'm talking.
Tommy just get up and start harassing us right for the jump.
Hey, Kenny.
I can't even finish my comment, man. That fool, man, my man.
Right. We'll go to somebody with a little more sense. Thank you,
Dr. Right. Thank you, Dr. Bankston. Thank you. Anyway, I'm
right. Finish your thought, Tommy. Don't let him throw you. Don't let him throw you.
No. So we have to clean our sidewalks. I don't have much problems with the snow, man. Just keep the car clean, keep the salt off the car so stuff doesn't rust over years. At the end of the day, I like being warm in the house, though.
Right.
I'll take it over anything.
Toya, what kind of driver are you in the snow? Or do you drive in the snow?
I do drive in the snow. I feel like I'm a pretty good driver as long as people don't hit their brakes consistently. Like, stop hitting your brakes. Like, get four-wheel drive. That's all I'm saying. Get four-wheel drive so you can drive with confidence.
So how do you drive with confidence? So how do you drive on the highway?
I'm a consistent driver. Like, I'm a fast driver. But I drive responsibly.
Okay. Those two don't go together.
Fast but responsible.
No, those two don't go together. Dr. Lewis, how do you drive on the highway? I'm about to tell you how I drive.
Well, I am absolutely a fast driver. From Cincinnati to Indianapolis, it takes me about an hour and 5 minutes. Yep. To get to Chicago from Cincinnati, it will take me, and I do this often, right? It takes me 3 hours and 20 minutes.
Oh, you doing it?
It takes me 2 hours and 45 minutes to get to Cincinnati to Cleveland.
Okay.
And these are typically 4-hour trips.
Oh yeah, man. You're doing it, bro.
My Toyota and me knowing the road, the highways, etc. These are clean days, obviously.
Right.
I can get there. But to Toya's point, with ice and snow, don't hit your brakes, right? Just ride on top of the snow, lean into the curves, right? And if you are going uphill and there happens to be a speed bump, do not stop at the speed bump. You won't get over it.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
Go
Okay.
ahead and get off the gas, just ride over the speed bump, right? And then keep on going and nice steady acceleration. We can teach a class, Toya, on how to drive.
Right. Just tell them, stop hitting the brakes. Stop hitting the brakes. Trying to tell you.
Yeah, you got some fans out there this morning, though, Tommy. But
They said you need to be ashamed.
right. Oh, she did the math on it. But I'm gonna tell you this: in the snow, bro. I am moving to the right and letting the people that want to just skedaddle right on past me. And you know what I do? I say, yeah, I'm about to see you right down the road. Because I ain't going down for nothing. So I'm more conservative in the snow, but I go everywhere. So I don't let nothing stop me. I never stop. There's snow. What? I mean, so I'm always going. But this is finally the best car that I've ever had in the snow. I've got a 4-wheel drive car. And so finally I'm, glad to have some. And for the first time since I've been in my house, I paid somebody else to shovel my snow.
Yep.
You have to, especially right now. It's ridiculous. The snow is just taking over.
Okay, yeah.
And so
we have a hill in front of our house, so we've been sledding, and that's been a good time.
Okay.
And I want our community, and they're chiming in right now. It's good. I want our community to know we're talking about driving right now, but we're talking about speed. And Toya Montgomery will be talking about her organization and speed dating.
Okay,
speed dating. So those who know our Saturday morning diversity conversations are very seldom scripted. We have a series of topics, and me and Eric and maybe a special guest will come on. But even Eric didn't know and doesn't know the full breadth and depth of what Toya Montgomery and her company, Good Vibes Entertainment, brings to us. And part of that is speed dating. So this is not just driving fast or driving slow. We're going to connect this to a diversity conversation, right? We're all good. So if I can, Eric, I'll jump into the introduction.
Yeah.
So we want to hear from our guests and allow our community to chime in. It is again an honor to have Toya Montgomery, the owner of Good Vibes Entertainment, join us this morning. Some time ago, maybe 2.5 years ago, she joined us when we were on the radio at a radio station. And Toya then brought a lot of insights into relationships. She is a serial entrepreneur, and as a serial entrepreneur, she is always thinking of how to provide a service and a product to other people. Those tireless efforts that we have, she is a bundle of energy. Many of you in the Cincinnati area may be familiar with her. She is on social media platforms, but I don't want to talk too much about her. She can tell you about herself. So I want to welcome Toya Montgomery to the show this morning. Good morning.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to connecting with you guys and connecting with your audience. Good Vibes Entertainment has been a long time coming for me. We've been doing speed dating as a portion of the business, but Good Vibes is really meant to be the how, the what, the where, and the why of entertainment. And so we always say we're not about a party, it's more about the experience. And so one of the offerings that we've been providing is speed dating. We started out doing speed dating, I guess it's been a couple of years ago when I had the coffee shop. We did speed dating, and since COVID's happened, we started doing virtual speed dating. And we had our first virtual speed dating session last Friday, and we had 3 matches that came out of it. We connected Atlanta and Cincinnati. And so for future speed dating initiatives, we're planning on just leaving it open. We're not going to say what city they come from. We're just going to be virtual. And if you're going to get with the long distance, then that's what it is. If you're not, then it sounds like she's going to make you move, just make moves. That's what you have to do. But it's been a great experience. We have a great producer. Tamika Bobo is our producer. She does an amazing job of just keeping the participants engaged. And it actually is more lucrative to do it virtually than it is to do it as a live event. So we're looking forward to doing more of them. And we found out that we do have a pretty mature audience with the plug. We have about 55% of our population is above 55. So we're planning on doing another speed dating that's for 45 and up, because this last one ended at 45. So it was 30 to 45-year-olds.
So tell us a little bit more about what is speed dating, kind of the format, and then go into a little bit of why do you think that your demographic, as you just mentioned, would be interested in this format to connect with regards to relationships or at least dating?
Well, speed dating is a series of quick dates. So you get 5 minutes to talk to each participant. And the reason that I know my audience is interested in it is because it allows you to meet more quality people in a quicker time frame, right? You don't have to wait for someone to say, hey, what's your name? Can I get your number? You don't have to wait to see if the person's going to be open and available and interested in having a conversation. Instead, I'm bringing you 10 viable women or men that want to have a conversation with you and get to know you in a quick format to where you can say pretty, relatively within a short order if you want to continue a conversation with them or not.
Yeah, and your demographic, you're looking at, 45, 55 older. Why this demographic, do you think?
Well, the last one was 30 to 45. And after I did 30 to 45, I had people calling me like, hey, my mom, she's really interested in doing it, but she's above 45. Are you going to do anything for the older generation? And then I had some guys that were like, hey, I'm 47. Like, can I do it? And I was like, you got to wait and do the next one, because I don't want to misrepresent what it is that we're bringing to the table, right? If we're saying the cutoff is 45, then the cutoff is 45. Now, if we got a girl that looks 35 and she's 46, then we'll let her in.
So I'll turn it to Eric in just a minute. And so as we talk about diversity, right? There's the diversity wheel, which expands, all of the dimensions of diversity, including the going beyond race, ethnicity, gender identity, etc. There's some other components around communication style and appearance, accent, relationship status, right? And so I want to focus on that relationship status and kind of how do people connect, especially over the last year with COVID. We've learned, Toya, that we as a population haven't been as connected physically with each other because of COVID restrictions. But I'm hearing from you that you have a niche demographic, not just demographic, but an audience of folks saying, I'm still interested in potentially finding love, right? What does that mean to you? What does it mean to you to be that conduit of connecting people and finding potentially love in someone else?
I'm a hopeless romantic. So I love love. I love to see people in love. And it doesn't necessarily, to me, someone else's experience doesn't make me feel envious or like, oh, what about me? Instead, I get more excitement for it because I know what love can do. And so I see that there are so many people that maybe have never experienced love, or they're afraid of what it might do to their lives, or they're afraid of how it might make them feel weak or look weak or whatever the situation may be. And I have a way of connecting with people to get them to open up to me to say, like, I'm looking for somebody to settle down with. Like, I want a wife. I'm ready. And so when they come to me, a lot of times, I'm not gonna lie, they come to me like, God told me you was my wife. And I'm like, no, he didn't. Because he would have told me. If he told you, he would have told me. And he ain't said none of the sorts that you were my husband. And so I have to a lot of times convince him, like, you know, it wasn't me, but I got somebody for you. I just need you to sign up for this speed dating event. And so it's interesting because I do have a couple that's getting married next year. And I told them the only thing I ask is that I'm invited to the wedding. So I always tell them, make sure I get a wedding invitation.
Oh, that's fantastic.
So let me throw a couple things at you here. How do people find this service, and maybe why the age ranges?
So they find it typically on social media, or if they know me. A lot of times people will just text me like, hey, Toya, like, you got anybody? I believe that the age categories are necessary, mainly because if you have too many people that are mismatched in a group, then it throws the entire group off, right? So there have been times where I've done a speed dating event and you have 80% of the people are intellectuals, right? And then you have this other 20% that's just like riffraff. And you're like, what? This doesn't work. So you have to be clear about who the people are within the fold, because otherwise it just throws the energy off to the entire event. And so if you're going to do a young audience that's not really looking for marriage, they just looking to have a good time, they want to, you know, connect because everybody wants to be connected, then we can do that. But if you're looking for a more mature audience, it's like, you know what, I'm looking for something long term. I'm looking for a life mate, a soul mate, whatever that looks like, then we want to at least make sure that we're in the same arena while we do the age ranges. And so, you know, 45 and up, I feel like you're going to be in a similar space, as opposed to like when we do 45 and up, we probably won't do an in. We probably won't do like a 45 to 75. We probably just do a 45 and up.
How many people come to the event? Where is it? Is it like a Zoom event? How many people are on the speed dating? Just talk about the mechanics of it. Like, so we heard 5 minutes, but what does that look like?
Right. And so people always ask me, they're like, well, can I be a fly on the wall? Can I just like, how can I experience it without experiencing it? And I'm like, you can't. There's no way to do that because none of our participants are willing to wear a GoPro to like showcase what that would feel like. It's too intimate, I think, because when they're in these, so they're in a room with the person. Nobody else is in that room, even though it's a Zoom call. We only allow for 20 participants. And the reason we do 20 is because if you have more than 20, it's hard to manage from a mechanical and just operational standpoint. So we do 10 women and 10 men. And it's easy to get 10 of each. That way we have a good balance. But what we learned from this last time is that we can't plan ahead how those matches happen. We have to just let the 10 in, let them flood in, and then we'll put them in matches that day, because people don't keep their word. So they'll say, even the women this time, I don't know if they got cold feet, I don't know if they forgot at the last minute or whatever, but we ended up having more men than women, which is a rarity.
So even in business, let's take a couple of different cities. We have the city of Cincinnati, Southwest Ohio. We have the city of Atlanta, Georgia, and the state of Georgia. We have Chicago, LA, Miami, New York City. All of these different cities and locales have different business cultures, right? In Cincinnati, you know, it's a unique culture for those who are less familiar. That as a African American, we are absolutely the minority in this community, right? So we have to move differently within the community. And sometimes from a business front, we have to either acclimate into certain cultures, or we have to acquiesce into certain cultures. And within the business community, there are some opportunities to date. And that dating culture is, what type of car do you drive? What type of community do you live in? What job do you have, so I can connect it potentially to some type of salary range? What's your credit score? That is in Cincinnati. That is the same in Atlanta, etc. With dating, Toya, what have you seen as the difference in dating cultures, say, for example, between Cincinnati and Atlanta, Georgia?
Well, what I'll say in Atlanta, there's additional aspects that you have to consider, right? So we got the down low brother that's really prevalent in Atlanta. So a big piece of that was like, okay, if I'm getting referrals for guys, it's like, is this guy down low? Is he straight up? Like, is he trying to get in a relationship? The other piece is that you have a lot of trans situations down in Atlanta. So it's like, is this a real female? Was she born a woman, or am I dealing? So it's like you have to do a lot of trust, a lot of getting somebody that you trust to get the information from, as opposed to just being able to leave it up for interpretation. So that was the biggest thing that I noticed between Cincinnati and Atlanta. Another piece that I noticed is that there's a difference between the wealth in Cincinnati and Atlanta. So, you know, where you might cap out at about 250,000 in Cincinnati, in Atlanta, it's blown way past $500,000. You know, so it's a matter of looking at who the people are and what it is they're bringing to the table and how they are moving the different parts, I guess I would say. And you know, I think there's a lot of transients between Cincinnati and Atlanta. You know, people go back and forth between the cities, but I think that everybody can't survive in Atlanta because they will eat you up and spit you out. And in Cincinnati, I think the survival rate is more likely, but it's not necessarily more successful.
That's a great point. That's a great point. And I know Eric has some comments too. I want to call something out that you shared. Again, Eric and I are diversity professionals, and we have this show every morning or every Saturday morning, and we have our community. And you mentioned a couple of dimensions of diversity that may have made some people uncomfortable. So we're talking about dating, but you very openly talked about a reality of the LGBTQ plus community. As a diversity practitioner, I listened to that. I didn't feel any reaction because I work in that reality. I work in the reality that there is an LGBTQ community that's among us, not out there in the atmosphere, it's among us. Just like there are white people and black people. And some people get all riled up, okay, we're talking about race. Or people who are single and don't want to be married, married and don't want to be married, divorced and want to be married, all of that, right? I know a lot of people who are married and I'm like, why? Right? I'm watching both of you and just pull the parachute on this thing, right?
Just let
we
it
had
go.
A conversation in closing. We had a conversation with another couple that runs a organization designed to move people from dating to marriage and the covenant of marriage. It was a very rich conversation. I want to ask you, why should someone get married? Right? And moving from dating, but why should someone get married?
But hold it, Tommy. Hold up. Don't blow past what you just threw on the table, bro.
Right. Let me address what you just put on the table, because I want to make sure that people understand that we're in full support of the LGBTQ community. I have really great friends that are LGBTQ. Right. I have nothing against being LGBTQ, but I think to be clear about what it is that you're doing, right? So, and just like with the age ranges, I want to be clear about the audience that I'm bringing together. If I'm bringing together an LGBTQ audience, then I want them to make and be amongst themselves, right? But if I'm not, then I want it to be clear. I don't want to bring someone that is pretending to be a sheep, but it's really a wolf. Like, I need you to be clear about what your intentions are and who you are coming to the table for my event. Because I don't want anyone to come back and say, yeah, Toya had, this trans woman and she, pretended to be something other than what was portrayed for the event. So,
but I mean, the question it comes: what do people have the right to do? And I don't have the answer on it, but I think that you certainly will find people that say that I have the right to reserve, all of my identity. I mean, that is what dating is about. If everybody, I like your head shaking, but
no, you have to be upfront. Like, I was just having this conversation with somebody the other day. He said this guy is married to a trans woman, and I said, and he's like, I don't think he does, and I think that is just like the epitome of a marriage. Like, you can't go into a marriage and not know that this is not you weren't born a woman.
But
like, that's my choice as a man to be with a trans woman. If that's what I want to do, I should have the choice to know what I'm entering into.
So I would say to you, though, that we could say that about so many dimensions of who people are. I think you can make an argument that all of social media is a put on. That nobody is saying that I'm depressed, I'm struggling with depression. They don't come out the gates with that. They sort of, put their quote unquote best foot forward. Isn't that the whole nature of what social media seems to be? Toya, who's shaking her head. I love it too. I love it. I love it. I love it.
That is so different. Like, that is such a different, because think about it. In the Black community, we already have so many men that are incarcerated and going through this whole process of, figuring out what and who they want to be when and if they come out of incarceration. And then you present something like this, and it's like, that's the biggest lie that you could tell to a potential spouse is, hey, I'm this person, but in reality, I was born this person. That would be like you marrying somebody and not telling them you had HIV. Like, what?
Okay, you're gonna get some letters from now. I certainly know that there's a lot of people that strongly align with what you're saying, but I think there's a whole number of people that feel like they have the freedom to be who they are today and to explore, and relationships. And part of exploring is finding those other things out. I don't personally have a position, but I think that it certainly is one that is debatable from a lot of different angles. That's
going into a marriage, you have to be upfront and clear about what your expectations are, what you want from the marriage, what you're bringing to the marriage. All of those things come out in counseling. Really is where you need to start. And so
no doubt about it.
I think that's a big miss if you don't at least talk about it. Maybe that person is still going to love you the same, but at least give them the opportunity to know what it is that they're walking into.
So let me go backwards just a bit. Is the objective of the speed dating for people that are looking for spouses? They're looking to get married.
Not necessarily.
Okay.
That's up to them.
Okay.
We don't prescribe, that you have to be ready for marriage. But a lot of times the guys that sign up to be a part of the speed dating are people that are like, you know what, I'm ready. I'm ready to get married. I'm ready to have a life partner. This world out here, I want somebody to share it with. So it just
what role do you play other than facilitating it? Do you have any sort of influence in the matching process? Because there's so many different dating sort of sites and things like that. Some of them manage it more. They try to advise. Some people sort of sit out and let people sort of find themselves. How do you see your role?
We do a little bit of both.
Okay.
At the end of the speed dating, they pick their top matches. They get 2 matches. And if they are in agreement, then I will share their contact information.
Okay.
I allow them to give out contact information on their own, because you have some men that are uncomfortable. Like, I wasn't really interested in her. I didn't really want to give her my number. Now she gonna call me every day, all day. And then there's some girls that are like, I don't want anything to do with him. Please make him lose my number. So that's why we make sure that there's a match before we give out any contact information.
Okay. Any racial differences do you have? Are these all Black people, or do you have some other ethnicities that are part of it?
We've had some mixes. It's been mostly if we've had African American men and white women or Caucasian women. We haven't had too many white men. I think we've had 1 white man over the entire time that I've been doing it.
Okay.
So
I think this is interesting. The other thing that I think, so I'm going to tell you a dream of mine. This may be another business opportunity for you.
Okay.
My vision is that you need a site for parents who are trying to support helping their children find the right person. In other words,
in China they do that.
Yeah, a lot of times people think that, for example, that men don't want their daughters to find a guy at all. That's not true. And I think that parents have some good instincts. My daughter wouldn't accept mine right now. She thinks I'm like that, older than 10 or something like that. But I think that would be interesting, because I think parents need to be able to find each other across the country and look at how you can facilitate, because the notion of trying to find the right person is like a needle in the haystack, especially if you're not really getting out there in a lot of places. COVID has locked people down, so they're not getting a lot of exposure. I think if you can increase the at-bat and have parents sort of who are eager to find candidates involved, that might be a great business opportunity as well.
We'll take that in consideration. They actually do that in China. But what they do is they set out the pictures and the credentials of the people, and then they want you to come and they want you to see, like, this is my son and I want to get him married. He got a good job in America, and he, it's really interesting, but they don't want you to see it. They don't want you to talk about it, but it's something that they do regularly in the park in Beijing.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
This conversation is so interesting to me, and then I'll go into my question. It's interesting to me because I have an Africana Studies degree from Tennessee State University, and as part of my senior thesis to earn my bachelor's degree, the thesis was the average response to the average pickup line. Believe it or not, that was my thesis. I wrote it. It was something like a 125-page paper. And what it was the average pickup line was, "Hello, how are you doing?" It was a relationship ask. I actually approached over 1,000 women, 1,000, and in 3 different categories. One, the woman was by herself, and I asked, "Hello, how are you doing? What is your name?" Or the woman was in a group of her friends, and I asked that question. And then the third option was I was introduced to the woman through a mutual friend. And there were 3 different responses, and I had to use a technique called quantitative and qualitative research analysis and all this good stuff, right? But what the research found was, now I have my question. When I approached the woman with my script in my head, they didn't know that I didn't really want to date them, right? So that was a lie in the beginning, right? In my integrity. This is straight research.
All in the name of research. All in the name of research.
All in the name of research. Even the love that I found in the name of research.
Right. That's
so what I found was when I was approaching some women when they were with their friends, literally their friends would work their way around me such that their friend could see them and see me. behind my back, the
Right.
woman was like,
Right. That's crazy.
Right?
Right. Wow.
and I'm, hello, how you doing? What's your name? Get the response. My name is Tasha. Tasha, I'm Tommy. Pleasure to meet you. What's your major? Right? Why? And the friend is like, so that was a failure. The successes is when that woman's friend walked around me.
Yeah,
Like,
Tom. That's it. That's it.
yep.
That is it.
So the influence of peers was even greater than when the woman or the man was by themselves, right? Or kind of, it was almost similar when they were introduced by a mutual friend or even a family member, a mom, a dad, a grandparent.
Mm-hmm.
So to Eric's point, and to what you do, Toya, my question, kind of going a little bit left here, is why, in your experience, why aren't people finding connections in their efforts to date such that they are opting to go to kind of the cyber dating,
Yeah.
right?
Well, I mean, everything's shut down right now. So as I was saying on my show the other day, like you don't get a chance to peacock. Like there, all the opportunities to get out and showcase and make sure you know who it is and floss and all that. It's shut down in Cincinnati, at least. Now in Atlanta, you can still do whatever it is you got going on. Okay, the whole city is still open. They're not wearing masks. Like I went to a party and I was just like mask on because I felt like COVID was going to walk up out of there at any moment. But, I think with Cincinnati being the way that it is right now and everything being shut down, people are more receptive to how can I get to know someone because all of my other options have been shut down in a sense, right? Because you don't go out as much. You're not going to the bar. You're not going to, hang out and kick it with your friends. And so as a result, there's less opportunity to meet people, of the other sex.
Okay, all right. Follow up, and Eric, I see you're getting double team. I see Judy's out there hitting you with a left punch. Karen's coming over with the right hook.
Right.
But Eric, you're going to lose today. So
That's no doubt.
Good luck to you, bro. Good luck. Good luck. So
we're going to do it for Father's Day. For Father's Day, we're going to do a segment called Father Knows Best.
Father knows best.
That's it right there.
So here's my question, and pardon me, Toya, if this lands offensively, there's no intent to be offensive at all. Are your parents still alive?
No.
No. Okay.
Both of my parents are deceased. My mom died when I was 3, and my dad passed away 3 years ago.
Okay. And both of my parents are deceased as well, both of them. Mm-hmm. So with your parent that most recently transitioned, may they rest in peace. And you have sisters, right? Yes. And I think personally, all of you are beautiful, inside and out. I know you more than I know your sisters, and we've known each other for years. And inside and out, I think wonderful. Would your parent that's most recently transitioned, what would some advice would they give you with regards to their beautiful daughters dating? Right, to Eric's point. So if I'm your father, I'm giving you the lowdown on what to watch out for. Right.
That's good.
In an attempt to prepare you for those wolves, those knuckleheads, those I'm up to no good people.
Right.
And not really saying love is great, love is out there, have a good go of it. What would your parents or even grandparents advice be to you and your sisters?
Well, my dad didn't have a whole lot of stuff to say. If he didn't like someone, he just would kind of let you know, I don't know about him. But one thing that always sticks out to me that my great grandmother said to me, she said, you never complain about a man working. She said, there's plenty of men that don't want to work. And so that always stuck with me because my ex-husband was a real hard worker, right? And so he was one of those people that he wanted to work hard instead of smart. And I'm the type of person, I want to work smart instead of hard. And so I don't mind you being a hard worker, but I want you to know how to do it in an efficient way to where we can still enjoy life. And it's not like, oh, work is getting ready to be the end all be all of the next 40 years of our lives kind of thing. So I don't know. I think that you really have to look at the person. That's what my dad always said, because my dad was short. So my dad was like 5'5", 5'2", something like that.
Oh.
I don't date short guys. And so he would always get upset with me. He would say, you don't judge a man by his height, you judge him by his character. And I would say, okay, that's all well and good, Daddy.
No short man over here.
I can't do a short man because the world doesn't respect them when they're with me. They think that they're my brother. And I don't like that.
Right.
Well, I'll tell you right now, I always tell my wife, and she may be watching right now, she knows this, you know, and I tell my wife all the time, I'm 6'5", if you didn't know. Now, in reality, I'm 5'11", 5'11". I'm always 6'5". I'm always tippy-toeing around, trying to get respect in my household.
Right. Toya, why don't you put in our chat how people can connect with your service? Because I think people would appreciate that because I think this is the way to go. It's interesting to me, you know, it seems like it's now become people are a lot more comfortable now on social media and dating sites and processes. Tommy, I'm going to talk about sort of the advice that I give my daughter and maybe my son. So let me just think out loud, brainstorm out loud. And I don't know if you want to think, you know, hey, what are you looking for as a parent? As I think about my daughter, I'm going to be happy ultimately if she's happy. So if she finds a guy that makes her happy, then I'm going to get there. So I don't really care about the race. I do have preferences around a lot of those things. You know, are they working? Are they able to provide? All that stuff is stuff that I care about. But at the end of the day, I'm going to be happy if she finds someone that makes her happy. I have a bias that says that I believe that a woman should find a man that loves her more than she loves him. I like it if they love each other. I'm not trying to, but I think that because of men being so at times shallowy, it's better if a woman finds a man that loves her more and is willing to work. Because if that cat ain't willing to work, and if the guy's in the mirror more than you, that's a problem. So I got some things like that you know are philosophies. I probably have a harder exterior for any brother that shows up that she got a daddy, bro. And that's me, you know. And so I got that kind of exterior that really is kind of standoffish a little bit. I ain't making it easy for cats to come through. You got to come through somebody when you coming for my daughter, you know. And I believe that if they can stand up against that, then that's the guy that's a candidate. And I think in many ways, my daughter uses me, her father, as a benchmark, you know, so it makes it tough in many ways for every guy that shows up. You know, how does this guy relate to what I saw in terms of my father?
And you know, it's interesting. At some point, I'm going to go back and get my PhD on human relations. And so one point that you mentioned about you being the father and you being kind of her guiding post, right, as to what she's looking for. I always say that men look for their mothers. They look for people like their mothers. And women either look for their fathers, or if they didn't appreciate who their father was to their mother, which in my case, I didn't appreciate who my father was to my mother. So I didn't look for my father. Right. So if anything, I'm looking for someone that is compatible to me in a way of what it is that I'm looking for in a relationship, right, as opposed to looking for my father. Right. But what I'll say is that I think that women look for someone that they have aspired to as a male figure if they don't have a respect for the way that their father treated their mother. And it's really interesting how that gets a little convoluted in the Black community because we have more broken homes, right? And so if you had a father in the house and you had a father that you really aspired to have a relationship like what your father has with your mother, then it makes it an easier conversation to figure out who you aspire to be with. When you don't have that blueprint, it makes it a little more difficult. And it's interesting because when I match people, I look at the male's mother and I say, okay, well, his mother was a Gemini, right? If his mother was a Gemini, he's looking for someone with Gemini qualities, right? And so it's interesting how I will match them up. Or if I see a picture of their mother and I say, wow, this girl really reminds me of his mother. And so sometimes it won't be the zodiac sign, it'll just be the look of the person. And a lot of times it works.
Well, people are so bad at picking. So let me ask you this. Why aren't people even looking? I mean, they're bad at picking. People don't seem to know what they're looking for. We see that arranged marriages are more successful than people picking themselves. So is this thing doomed to failure? Are people unrealistic in terms of what they're looking for? And do they even have a clue?
I think some people are unrealistic. They have these lists that go on forever. They can't meet half the things on the list. And it's like, okay, well, you asking for him to have this, this, and this. What do you have? What are you bringing to the table? And a lot of times they're like, oh, well, I ain't really think about it like that. Okay, well, you need to think about it like that because we're just going to be upfront and personal with you that sometimes I have to tell people like, she's out of your league. Like, and I don't mean it in a disrespectful way at all, but it's like, I need you to be more realistic in this thing. If you're trying to find somebody that's going to be equally yoked to you, why are you going after her? She's not what you need. Right. She might be what you want, right? But she's not what you need. So sometimes it's a kind of come to Jesus moment where it's like, I got to be brutally honest with people, both male and female, to say, okay, I get that this is what you think that you want, but let me just introduce you to something that you might need and see how you feel about it.
Right. Let me ask you another question. So in today's world, Black women, women of color that are accomplished, it seems to me that people are beginning to say to them, you got to lower your standard. They're looking at the demographic that relate to Black men, for example, and they're saying to women that maybe you've got to lower your standards if you're going to get married. I disagree with that vehemently, but along with that question, I'm going to ask you, which is really what you see is the ingredient that's most valuable for success? Is it that they're matched up in terms of their socioeconomic status or love? Is it me falling in love with you? Is that the greater thing, or the match around all of the stuff that we have in common? And then should women, the sort of quote unquote, do Black women, women of color that are successful, do they have to quote unquote lower their standards?
So I'll answer one question at a time. The first question you had is about, do Black women that are successful need to lower their standards? I would say absolutely not. I think that especially in Cincinnati, and I don't date in Cincinnati because I was having this conversation with Tommy about the fact that there is a difference between a successful Black man in Cincinnati and a successful Black man in another city, especially in my generation. A lot of times the wealth from Cincinnati comes from, a dope boy that got transitioned, as opposed to you go to some of these other cities and these Black men are exceptional. They've been taught to be exceptional from point A, right? They know what hard work looks like. They know what a scholar is. They know how to be an intellectual, how to read books and take from it and be able to, bring that to bear for a relationship.
You're dogging out all of Cincinnati?
I throw out all Cincinnati. Listen, I don't date in Cincinnati. It's a wrap for me in Cincinnati. But anyhow, the second question that you asked is is it love, or is it more about a compatibility of assets and where you want to go and those types of things? And I think that love is great, right? But I don't think that love is the end all be all. I think for a marriage to work, it's got to be way more than love. And you have to make sure that you're moving in the right direction collectively, that this is something that you want to do and this is somewhere you want to go. Because as most people know, I was married for 14 years. And the reason that my marriage didn't last is because we were going in two very different directions. So he was complacent. He got to a place where he was like, I'm comfortable. This is it right here. And I'm going, wait a minute, I got things to do. I'm trying to go here. And he wasn't in agreement with that. And we got married at 25, right? So we were two very different people at 25 than who we are today at 40. And so I think that you really have to look at what do you ultimately want to do with your life? How do you want your life to unfold? And I think when you lose people close to you, like I lost my dad, it made me look at my own mortality and say, what do I want for my next 20 years? How do I want things to unfold for me? Right. Being where he was and in the complacency was not where I wanted to be.
I'll tell you, I'm a little bit old school. Tommy, I want you to jump back in here. I'm a little old school. I really believe that you ought to look for it all. In other words, I really believe that you want to find someone who is compatible. But I also believe that you need to find love. And I think that if you don't have love and you have compatibility, I think there's a tendency, but I think women may do this better than men. Maybe women do it better than men. I think there's a tendency to look at the grass being greener on the other side if you didn't have something that can sustain you. And if it's compatibility of assets, if any of those go away, then does your relationship go away? But I think if you marry solely for love, and then we can't do the things that are necessary to survive, I think there's some weaknesses in that too. So at the end of the day, I kind of want it all, and I think that people need help in trying to identify what's the best fit for them, because I don't think people do it well by themselves.
Right. Well, but don't you think in a marriage you fall in and out of love?
Yes.
No, I don't. I don't think you fall.
Okay.
I think that some days you love each other, but you don't like each other. So it's like my kids. I always love them, but I don't always like them, you know. And so I think that's probably it. You know, I think that for me, I think coming from a family where my mother and father stayed together, my wife came from a family where her mother and father stayed together, I think we had a commitment. That's the other question that I have for you is, are you seeing any changes in that today? Are people less willing to make those lifelong commitments to one another? And even should they? I mean, you know, so what are your thoughts on that?
I think lifelong commitments still exist. It's just a matter of both parties agreeing that this is what they want to do and how they want to see things unfold. I think the biggest piece is being clear about what your intentions are, and then, you know, checking in on a regular basis to say, where are we? You know, because you may be madly in love and the other person may be like, look, this ship is sinking. And right. Sometimes you just got to call a spade and move on.
So here's Jason was with us a few weeks ago, him and his wife, and he's weighed in. You want to react to this?
That's a very good point, Jason. I was just having a conversation about this recently because a friend of mine was saying how a lot of times he gives love, but he doesn't receive love. And I thought that was interesting because I've never had it put in that way, almost to the sense that he felt like the world was depending on him, but he couldn't depend on anyone in return. And I just thought that was an interesting perspective. But a lot of times, if you are a person that you're loved conditionally, right? It's very hard for you to turn that back around, because all you've been taught is this conditional love. It's never been unconditional. It's always, well, what you can bring to the table. And if you can't bring something to the table, then all of a sudden, all the love for you disappears. And so you don't know how to reciprocate because you've never been given an unconditional love. So I think that everyone is loved differently and receives love differently. I do believe in the 5 love languages. If you guys are familiar, I would always say my ex-husband was his love language was words of affirmation. And so I would say you could tell him something for 5 minutes and he'd be filled up for 5 months. It was perfect because my life was like all over the place, right? I don't have time for this quality time thing. And so I think you also have to look at who you're in union with and what they require to be loved.
Right.
And whether or not you have the ability to love in that way. Because if you don't, they're going to always be empty because you're not providing them love in the way that they would like to be. And sometimes they can't articulate what that looks like. But if you pay attention, even with your kids, if you pay attention to how they respond to certain things that you do, then you'll know, like, that's their love language. Like, my daughter loves quality time. She is a quality time kid. So whoever her husband is, God bless him. He is going to have to spend some good quality time with my baby. But you can tell just about, your interactions.
Right.
Just trial and error.
I failed in you saying if you just pay attention. Let's just look at what pay attention delivers. So I was blowing it in the first year or two in terms of the gifts that I was giving Judy. And then one year I decided to pay attention. I paid attention and I heard her say that she was trying to lose a little weight. She wanted to cook more and something else. And I sent her a gift over to Procter & Gamble. She gathered around all her friends. And here come this big bouquet of stuff. And when she undid it, it had in there a ham, an apron, some diet candy, and something else. I mean, literally, go ahead. Worst gift ever. Tommy, I was listening. I was listening to everything she said on the slide. Okay, I got it down. We'll give her something. Next was a vacuum cleaner. And I would have literally topped the worst gift of all times. It took me probably 25 years of marriage to finally realize that what I needed to do was to ask her what she wanted and then get that.
Right.
Why do you
definitely do not send a ham and an apron to any woman for any reason? Okay, people?
Worst ever. I never dated that many people, so I didn't really know anything. And I was certainly demonstrating that. And she was like, all her friends was like, oh, your husband sent you something. She had a whole crowd. Tommy, worst gift ever.
And she was patient. She was patient while you did it.
Right. I asked her what she wanted for Valentine's. She said something from Yelton. I got her gift certificate. Here you go. Do your thing.
I've thoroughly enjoyed this, and I'm listening, and I'm running through things in my head, a lot of thoughts. I married my wife, and my wife knows this, my order of why I got married. And I didn't marry my wife for love initially at all.
Right.
The order for me is loyalty, love, respect.
Okay.
Because I think that the loyalty will be when I'm in and out of love with you or in and out of like with you, right. I'm still there.
Right.
Right. And that loyalty is a binding mentality and a behavior.
That's good, Tom.
Love is an emotion, right? And people say, you don't always just tell me you love me, but show me. And if you don't know how to show love, you don't know how to show love, right? At least you don't know how to show love in the way that your significant other would like to receive the love.
Right.
Because some people show love by putting their hands on you. I want to pause there for a moment.
That's
there are many relationships and marriages that maybe the husband is beating the woman out of the definition of love.
Yeah,
I
wrong.
don't agree with that.
Hey,
right? And that woman may not be staying in that relationship because of loyalty. She may be staying in a relationship because of fear,
right.
which is another emotion.
Get
Love
out. It's like
and
that
fear.
movie. Get
There's a
out.
science to it. So loyalty, love, respect, right? And then the other comment, that's just one comment, and I have a comment and a question for Toya. I remember, I guess I may have been about 25 years old or 27 years old, and I went to an event. It was in Nashville, Tennessee, and I went to an event with a group, and we were watching the presentation or whatever. And I remember vividly this woman, this girl, same age, I guess, as me. She came up to me, and I was kind of in the back in the aisle, and she stood next to me, and I looked and I said, "How you doing?" I mean, because she just showed up out of nowhere. She's like, "I'm fine. How are you?" Like, "I'm good." And I'm watching this performance. And she asked me, she said, what do you use any product on your face? What do you use on your face?
Oh, that's
And
a nice one.
I said, I use soap. And I turned and watched the performance.
Right.
That's been my life.
Right.
In other words, I've been so focused on certain things that I don't even always notice the cues
Right.
that the other people are giving. For real. I'm not that egotistic. Sure, I can shave and kind of get myself ready, but at the end of the day, I'm trying to get it. So my question is, what are some of the cues that women give to men in their approach to dating
That's
that
interesting.
men often miss?
That's interesting.
Yeah, oh my goodness. Clearly, they don't know how to give good gifts. They give out hams and freaking aprons. But I think a lot of times men
I got to be the Jim.
will love you the way that they feel loved. So if they like for you to tell it, I can always tell how a person wants to feel loved because that's how they'll give it to me, right? If they're a person that is words of affirmation, they'll tell you that they love you all the time. And it's like, okay, you can talk to me all day. Words of affirmation is not my love language.
Oh.
I don't know what you say. I need you to show me, like, come and get the snow out of my driveway. Come and cook me something to eat. Like, I'm an acts of service kind of person. And so a lot of times, and it's not just a male thing, it's a female thing too. We do things out of, this is what makes me feel loved, so I'm going to do it for you. So I go out and buy all these gifts, and then I give them to you, and you're like, I don't want these gifts. Like, you buying me all these gifts. And the reason that it's not sitting well with you is because your love language is not receiving gifts. Your love language is quality time, and she don't have time for you. All you got time to do is bring these gifts. And I'm like, this girl just don't get it. Like, we completely missing each other in the dark because I'm over here wanting her to spend time with me, and she's over here buying gifts and running off with her friends. And so it comes back to really listening and paying attention to what the other person's love language is. And I would tell you probably 90% of the men that I've ever come across, at least one of their love languages is physical touch. The other one is usually something else. So most people have two. And it's either, words of affirmation, quality time, acts of service, receiving gifts, or physical touch. Those are the 5. And so if they have one, it's definitely, generally speaking, that backup one is physical touch.
So let me ask you, I did ask you before, is it possible for people to connect with your service? Because I think there are probably people out there that are interested in how do they get a hold of you, participate. When's the next speed dating round gonna happen? I mean, there's folks out there that's trying to get connections for their friends, family, siblings, moms, dads. How do they connect?
I think I might have put it in the private chat. Should I just put
Yeah, you
Put it in the
did.
private.
Yeah, we
Okay.
didn't show up there.
I'll put it in the comments.
Right.
We advertise on our Facebook page when the next one is. We haven't confirmed it yet, but it will be, like I said, it'll be that 45 and up range.
I'm gonna ask you a trick question. Who's having the most success, men or women?
Men for sure.
How do you say that? If they having success, it's with a woman.
It is.
Maybe-
The reason that it's men is because, and I have to be really careful about, them being able to get too many connections, right? Because if
Yeah,
there's
yeah.
that's the only consideration that has to go into play, and that's why we limit it to 2. Because if we do more than that, a lot of times it's not really connection, right? It's like
Right, hookups.
it's just a hookup, right? And that's not what we're trying to do. Now,
Right.
It doesn't have to be marriage, but we don't want it to be just a hookup either. For some reason, it's blocking me from making a comment. It only allows me to do it in the
Well,
chat.
we'll give you an opportunity a little bit later on as we're moving toward the end to share verbally, and people can write, if you will.
Okay.
We'll put it up there. And so for the over the last 6 to 8 years, my wife and I have been hosting a Black Love series in our home, where we would invite maybe 3 to 4 different couples. It would be 10 of us. This is all pre-COVID, right? And some of the couples were, newly married within the first year. Some of them are 40 years in, right? And I remember when I started this Black Love series, and there's a lot of Black Love series out there. I started when my mother was alive, and it was about 15 years ago. And she was sharing comments as well. She was joining. And so fast forward over the last year, there's been a increase in YouTube kind of documentary, or not documentary, but shows called, a Black Love series. A lot of them. They're high quality. There's one called Hollywood Conversations or Hollywood, and there were roughly about 4,000 people in the audience listening to, Grant Hill and his wife Tamaya. That was the most recent one, like a month ago.
Yeah, they've been 20 years, right? They're 20 years in.
20 years, yep. And they talked about how they met. She was in entertainment, music industry. He was a professional basketball player. And what did that look like at that level of career success, mobility, access to opportunities to date, right? Because that's a critical point too.
Yeah.
When there's more opportunity, then there's more opportunity to succeed and to potentially learn bad habits.
Right.
Right.
Tommy.
And so one of my questions to you is, as you look at some of the people who are seeking this, kind of relationships or dating, let me just say dating through your platform, how can you tell the sincerity in people, meaning their heart? Am I really trying to date? And however that's defined, dating does not mean marriage, right? Or am I trying to kind of fish and see what I can catch? And if I don't like what I can catch, then throw it back into the pond. But I still have created the behavior of just fishing and catching. And a lot of guys, per my experience, and I went to different colleges, so as a college student, then the guys were all just fishing. And then we caught that good one, and then we couldn't get it off the hook, and we end up getting hooked, and now we're married. Fact. right? Otherwise, I have a whole bunch of 55-year-old friends who are still unmarried and dating every 3 to 6 months.
Right.
Yeah, different woman. What?
Well, I'm reading this book right now, and it's called Mars and Venus Go on a Date. And I think there are some really good points in the book in that there are, I think it's 4 or 5 stages to dating. And it talks about how you have to first have the attraction, and then from the attraction, you have to have the uncertainty. And then from the uncertainty, you have to have the fidelity or the commitment, right? And then from the commitment, you go into the engagement. And so what's really important, I think, to note on that point that you made about fishing, right, is that if they go into the intimacy too soon, then that uncertainty period becomes an issue, right? Because now I'm uncertain about, do I want to proceed with anything with you, or did I just really want to smash? Like,
Right.
That's where I am. And so if we got to that intimacy point, then I got to the intimacy point with someone else, and then I got to the intimacy point with someone else, and now the uncertainty is real uncertain, right? Yeah. I'm really confused about, well, where is this going and where are we? Because I'm feeling the same feelings for this other girl that I've been longing after for however long, and she finally gave it to me, and we're not in a commitment. And so because everything is being witnessed backwards, it causes that much more uncertainty than it would if we were doing more of an exclusive dating situation with, one-on-one scenarios. And I think that's where we go wrong in terms of the fishing. You don't really get a chance to get to know that person. Instead, you get to know the intimate sides of that person and how that person makes you feel sexually, instead of understanding how that person works with your mind and how you can connect on a different level, emotionally and intellectually, right?
That's good. That's good.
Right. And my grandmother used to say, why buy the cow when you get the milk for free? She used to say that. And there's something to be said about that, because but then if a guy's just holding off for that, you know what I'm saying? It's a complex thing. Let me ask you to weigh in on this thing that Jason has said. What's your perspective about that? If you're not dating to marry, you're only practicing divorce in your mind. React to that in your most honest way, Toya. And then Tommy, I see you got a perspective about it too. Jump in.
Yeah, so I do date. I date for marriage. I look at a person and I say, could I marry this person? And if the answer is no, then I don't even want to go on a date with you. I don't want to go and have a lunch. I don't want to have a dinner. I don't have time. My time is very precious. So to me, you have these people that are like, oh, it was a free meal and a movie or whatever. No. Let's be clear. I don't want to be out with just anybody. Right. And so I think the piece that needs to be noted is that everybody's not dating for marriage because they may be at a different point in their lives. Yeah. So I go back to when I was 25. I was dating for marriage then, and I probably shouldn't have been, because at 25, I was still growing into who I was going to be.
Right.
And it just so happened that I was in a church where we were really we were teaching, and the preachers were teaching it's better to marry than to burn.
Right.
And so a lot of us got married and a lot of us got divorced, right? Because we went into it with almost like a bandwagon approach. Like, everybody's getting married, we should too. Right. And I think that sometimes you're not ready to get married. And if you're not ready to get married, does that mean that you don't date at all?
Good.
No. I think you have to have some experiences dating before you can be prepared to be married.
Sounds like you just contradicted yourself.
No.
You said both sides. You said, I'm dating to get to marry.
I am now at 40.
Okay.
And at 25, I probably shouldn't have been.
Right. Okay.
Because I don't think that I was ready to get married. I got married with the whole group of people that we were all getting married at the same time. And the reality is that, you know, you need to know what your scenario is and what your situation is if you should be dating to get married. And sometimes you're not.
Yeah, so I'm going to share my comment. I know Brother Timmy has a comment.
What we hear nerve on?
Right. We got a whole barbershop that's listening in, and so they done weighed in on that whole dating and married. I hear you.
So my take on this, and I want to get some reaction from the barbershop. Love the shop, right? So from my experience, I started, and my parents knew this as well because they were supporting. I started dating women when I was in 7th grade, seriously.
Okay.
Right. So you also have to understand, and I'm not going to name the age, but when I began intimacy, I was extremely young.
All right.
I'm talking about single digits.
Whoa.
Not 12 years old, not single.
Okay.
Common. And I got the business taught to me.
Right.
And the girl was 6 years my senior.
Right.
So I'm dating at 7 years old, high school, I'm dating, but I had no intentions of getting married.
Right.
Right. I love these women, right? Girls. I thought they loved me, but I was fishing.
Right.
Opportunity was there. I was a 4-sport athlete. I was an academic scholar. I came from an upper middle class family. I had resources. In fact, my nickname was Hollywood.
Okay.
Money.
Right.
I always had some bread on me, legal bread.
Right.
So then I go to college and I start to meet some other women from different parts of this country, and they had different styles, like Chicago, Detroit, Jackson, Mississippi.
Right.
I'm not going to name the names, but that's where they're really from.
Right.
Then I started to get serious about thinking, I'm tired of playing games in the dating scene.
Okay.
I need to date to get married.
Okay.
But I thought that I don't want to get married now. That was my thinking, not listening to God's blessing on me.
Right.
So because of that, I lost some blessings. Facts. Right? And received some blessings. I lost some blessings. So fast forward, when I'm more seasoned and I start to date, more seasoned, meaning I have a career, I'm an adult, I'm in my 30s.
Right.
I date to get married and get married.
Mm-hmm.
And then we grow apart.
Right.
To Toya's point. And so I stopped dating my wife in the marriage. So now, before I was waiting to get married, and now I'm married and stopped dating.
Right.
And we divorced. I learned the lesson, date another woman with much more wisdom. Now I'm 40 plus years of wisdom.
Right.
I'm dating every day now. I'm married every day now.
Right.
I'm having conversations with my wife that doesn't include the wisdom of unmarried men.
Okay.
Yep.
Peace, bro.
An unmarried man cannot give me advice about marriage.
Okay.
To my wife.
Right.
He can give advice about marriage to another man.
Right.
But even the men in my family, like my uncles, gave me some best advice. You are married to your wife.
Right.
Start to pull back from other advice. Your daddy or me, my uncle said that. Hey, at the end of the day, I'm going to drop some advice to you, and then I'm gone, and you got to deal with that stuff.
Right.
So the ups and downs that my wife and I have now is because we're still dating and learning each other.
That's good.
And letting some of that other stuff go, right? And that the loyalty is there, and we grow in love. And then sometimes we have to fall back into, listen, I just got to respect you now, right? Because I feel disrespected, but I don't need to. That's an ego thing. Now, I got to respect you.
Right. Clyde, well, welcome to the show. And Clyde has come in with a lawyer's amount to say. Would you like to weigh in on that, Toya?
Yeah, I mean, I see what he's saying about homosexuality and socioeconomic decline of the Black men. I think that it's more prevalent in Cincinnati than it is in other cities. I think especially successful Black women, we have to be open to dating outside of our area. We have to expand our territory because if you look at the statistics of Cincinnati, we have a lower educated Black population. And so if you're in that scenario, even though we're transplanting all of these professionals from other cities to work at Procter's and Kroger's and, all of these corporations, we still are at the lower end of an educated Black population. And so as a result, you have to expand outside of what you're being presented in front of you. And you have to decide, if you're not willing to go outside of Cincinnati, are you willing to lower your standards and stick with what's in your backyard? Or are you going to open up and expand your territory to see what might be available to you outside of the city limits?
And I'm hearing, go ahead, Tommy, go ahead.
No, I'm smiling, I'm laughing because I completely agree with Toya on this point. And I know I sound like a dead, broken record on this, but listen, and this is not a blowing the horn on Tommy Lewis. Eric, I talk about all the countries I've been to. There are women in those countries. In the 55 countries I've been to, there are women. And in my view, there are some beautiful women around this world.
Right.
From the Philippines to Japan, to Rome, to the Dominican Republic, and some of the brothers like, yeah, we want to go to the DR, right? But I'm saying, if you are only exposed to your block,
that's good.
Your high school,
that's good.
That's all you know. That's right. That's not a fault of your own. That's all you know. Because if you're accustomed to the fine dining at McDonald's,
right?
And then when you go to Atlanta and you have to put on a coat, a sports coat, or maybe not a tie, but you have to maybe drop a couple of $100 for fine dining.
Right.
That $200 for fine dining just for the date dinner is a little bit, in my mind, a little bit different than the $5.79 fine dining dinner at McDonald's. And for me, and my wife who's listening, she has class. She keeps our home immaculately clean in order. Yep. And I now have come to expect this because that wasn't me all the time. I would drop my shoes at the front door and scurry up to wherever, or roll my coat on the end of the couch or end of the chair. But my wife said, whoa, you need to continue to date me.
Right.
I have a standard. And she raised my standard on a consistent level. Sure, I can raise the standard and manage that for a little bit and then fall back down to straight no good, not paying attention, right? What is he saying?
I was going to go back, Clyde. Don't worry. I was coming back. So, Clyde, I did want to come back to his question, and I don't want to deal with all of the channels underneath, but Clyde has said marriage in the Black community is becoming obsolete and undesired. I would say a couple of things in response to that. Number one, I think that this younger generation has a big question mark around marriage. I think that we're seeing people that are believing that they want to focus on their career. They're asking the question, do I need marriage? And is marriage an obstacle to my being able to do all the things that I want to do? So I think we're seeing people that's getting married later in all groups. I think there are some unique challenges within the Black community, but I can tell you that if you come from a family where you saw a family scenario that was positive, I think that is still something that you desire. I know that's what my daughter's looking for. That's what my sons are ultimately looking for, is they see the power and the value of family. So then they desire that. All of these other challenges, I think they fall away if people have an orientation towards being together. And I'm not sure if younger people are there, anymore. People are feeling like, I can get my career and I can get anything else I need on the side. So I'm not sure. I don't know if you all want to weigh back in on that.
I think it depends on your life experiences, right? So even if you didn't grow up in a household with a mother and a father, if you had a mother and a father household that you were kind of always around, a lot of prior to that, we all grew up with the Cosbys, right? And we've seen Cosby just get demolished with all of the things that went on in the news with him and his reputation, which is really a sad thing, right? Because that was what we held to a standard of what the family was. And so I think that I can understand where Clyde's coming from. I don't think that people are writing marriage off. I think that people are being a little bit more selective about how they go about that process and take more time to decide who and how they enter into a marriage.
Right.
I would just add real quick that I think that, to Clyde's point, that marriage, as we know it today, is both a religious concept as well as a social concept. And those religious and social concepts or constructs have changed over the millennium. And so as we think about dating ourselves, people were getting married not under the cloak of the law, not under maybe a religious sect. People were getting married, but it wasn't defined as marriage as we know it today. Right. So now today, the generation, whatever that generation is, if they're not religiously inclined to accept the canons of marriage, or they don't see and or adhere to the societal construct of marriage. So one of which is religiously, there are some religions say that marriage is between a man and a woman. We know now that marriage has been between different genders. Legally, maybe not as much, but people have been together for 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 years and not legally married. Not only across genders, but in same gender, but cross genders. If it's male and a female. I mean, in Ohio, we have common law, right? So that's a social construct. The problem today, I think, with marriage is the question of why. It's not the relationship. It's not the loyalty, love, respect. It's not the benefits. It's the why marriage as an institution. And some people respond religiously. Here's the canons religiously, and some say socially. For those who don't adhere to either one, it doesn't make sense anymore. So I'm going to define marriage the way I define it, that makes sense to me in the person that I am married to. Right. That's what I think. Because in 50 years, when we have this conversation, I think it's going to be from a different mind, a different construct and mindset altogether.
Right. So let's close out this way. Toya, we'll have to have you back. This has been a great show. Let's close out maybe with why marriage, or let's just go with why marriage, because that's where we'll land this ship. I'll tell you that for me, I really believe that marriage has been the greatest gift to my life. That without marriage, I would have been completely subject to my own flesh desires. And I think I would have been selfishly only focused on what makes me happy. because I found love and marriage, it has made my life more complete, more robust. It has helped me to grow up. I can tell you that I love my wife, and I don't know how you try to raise, kids without somebody else there with you. And I know people are doing it. I'm not trying to say anything about the people, but boy, that's a heavier lift when it's just you, because one child is a challenge. I've got 4 beautiful children, and the family that I have, the marriage that I have, it gives my life meaning when all else fails. When the business was down, when the house was in foreclosure, I had marriage. I had a family that made me feel fulfilled. So for me, I'm grateful for this love that I found in marriage.
I'll add, and then Toya closes out for today. I believe marriage for me is definitely a blessing and a tenement of God. Hands down for me. I know my free will that God gave me. And if it weren't for the covenant of marriage, I would be wilding out. Marriage keeps me disciplined and accountable to the blessings and the curses. That's it, right? So it's always under the covenant of God that marriage controls me and manages me and doesn't allow me to always use my free will, which is to be a rolling stone.
Wow. Yeah, I appreciate marriage. And like I said, I was married for 14 years. The biggest thing is to be able to find a partner, somebody that you can be in a marriage with, as opposed to you feeling like you are having a dependency. Like, you have to be clear about what your intentions are and how you want your marriage to be set up. Because I think that you can set it up in a way that really doesn't work for you, and then you'll be looking back saying, why did I do this and how did I get here? So all I will say is you can find us on Facebook, The Plug with Toya T. You can also find us on Instagram. I wasn't able to put the link in there, but if you go on Facebook and you look under Toya Montgomery, and I have a cross-reference to The Plug with Toya T.
Right. Well, Toya, thank you for joining us this week. We thank our community for joining us. Y'all did y'all work finally. The community did their work, Tommy. They was engaged, man. We're going to have to put Clyde and Kim Wilson and Jason in an isolation box, but certainly we absolutely appreciate every one of you joining us. LaToya will have to have you back. Thank you all. Make it a great week for Diversity Conversations, and we'll see you next Saturday morning at the same time, 9:30 to 11, when we'll continue this conversation. Take care.
All right.
All right.
Why don't you all hold on for just a second? We'll end the broadcast.